We are back at the Genzio Media House, and today I'm gathered with Janine, co-founder of Edge City and co-creator of Zuzalu. Janine, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you doing, Mia?
Very good. I was at Edge City a couple days ago, and it looks amazing. It's always such a creative way of bringing people together, not just how you put together the spaces, but how you curate the entire experience from, I'd say, like onboarding and selecting everyone. And I've never met someone boring at neither at Zuzalu, which I was very glad to participate for a couple weeks, and now at Edge City. How did this idea come together?
Well, thank you, and I'm thrilled that you had a good time. We're doing one activation here in Denver just for a week as like a taste of what the broader Edge City concept is. And how it came together, honestly, Vitalik came up with a great idea after reading so much about network states and writing a ton about crypto cities. And just this world of like experimentation was kind of lacking in this area. Like we've done a lot around building these big institutions around universities and cities for longer periods of time. And then we've got all these like tiny events that are sort of like these 2-day, 3-day long splashes, weeks at most. And the kind of concept there was like, well, there's few people experimenting in this world of 200 to 600 people for 2-month to 6-month periods. Like, why don't we just explore what that could look like? It feels a little bit like it's not fully real life, but it's long enough that it can feel that way. And bringing together at least above Dunbar's number of people to live together for an extended period. So Vitalik ended up pulling in a bunch of different people to help bring this to life. And the whole concept was like, can a community build something together versus sort of just a few individuals create programming for a full 2 months? And it was such a great success as just this social experiment. And from my standpoint, I have been deeply curious about social experimentation and community for the longest time on one end, and progress and productivity and like living your healthiest, best life while doing good for the world on the other side. So Ethereum had been this world that I dove into, not because of the, being technical, because I'm not technical at all, but because I'm super fascinated in community and like what and where does community form naturally, and how do we help elevate and preserve that type of space. And the sort of way that Ethereum has this philosophy around open source, around, decentralization, I was just super curious about the fact that every single crypto project had a community leader, and that people travel around to all these events around the world in this kind of nomadic way that exists in like new society experimentation that few other areas were doing. So that's how I dove in and got involved, in the crypto space, was at Gitcoin running the public goods funding workstream, because I deeply care about this world of like public goods and open source. And that then kind of in partnership with what I was doing in Austin, where we were building a 100-person community that was kind of a cul-de-sac community in a small area, where the idea was like get everyone in close proximity and just like live near friends. Like, how hard can it be? And pairing those two together with something like Zuzalu was amazing. And then we decided to decentralize Zuzalu at the end of last year. And the next iteration of that was like, well, if Zuzalu is becoming a movement of just this concept of social experimentation, what is the piece and what is the role that I want to play in that world of social experimentation? And as someone who deeply cares about building community, I didn't want to just like sit on the sidelines and watch the movement become something and write about it, because I never write, or just speak about it and kind of hopefully have other people inspired to do so. I was more on the side of wanting to build and wanting to create these environments and these like social experiments that I want to see in the world. So that's how Edge City came about, and we're doing 2 big villages this year. So Denver was just a taste of like what's in store. We've got something that's going to happen in Healdsburg, California in June. and then in Southeast Asia in October and November.
It is fascinating to see how, like you on your element, like when someone goes to one of these pop-up villages and you are sort of like coordinating everyone, you never come across like, like stress. Like if something bad happens, it's like you are in full control, and you transpire this to the people that are working directly with you, but also to those who are in the room there to experience and have no idea what is going on. I think that's like truly inspiring. And I guess my question would be like, what is at your core that makes you so passionate about community, that allows for that calm and assurance to work the room like that?
Well, thank you, firstly. I don't know if I feel that way, but I'm thrilled I exude that. I'm just having so much fun. And I think what really helps is reminding myself and reminding others around me is that, like, everything is perfectly imperfect. Like, nothing can be perfect. And, perfection is sort of the enemy of creation sometimes, and the enemy of creativity as a whole. And so much of this is like, life should be fun. Like, life should be this amazing journey. Like, we're here for such a short amount of time. And to be stressed about something, to be, worried about how a carpet is on the floor or whether the lighting is exactly correct. Like, I wish I was more perfect in certain ways like that. But on the flip side, what I remind myself of is like, we're here for so short, and like what we are as humans and how we are as like mammals really is social beings. And our time is better spent, like, we're happier when we're in community and when we're with other people that are focused on doing good things in the world. And so much of like what we've built, we've got this incredible infrastructure and amazing technology that we have created as humans. Like, we're pretty incredible beings. But on the flip side, we haven't done a ton to experiment socially recently. And why I'm so passionate about community is I think about like what it was like, with humans without all of the things that we've built and all of the infrastructure and all of the systems that we've created that are so complex at this point. Like, strip that all away. And like, let's go back to when we were, nomadic and in tribes. Like, we were always with people. We were in these groups of 50 to 150 individuals where we truly could not have survived without one another. Yeah. And then we've built all these systems, and we've added all this infrastructure and sort of these problems that we're trying to solve in different ways that in large part have us living completely separately. Like, the homes we all have are, great, but you're in total isolation to your next door neighbor. Most people have no idea who their neighbor is. On top of it, we've created these like status models where it's like, the bigger your home is, the more isolated it is from others because you've got a big backyard, like, the better things are. But when you actually start looking at just like the stats of people's happiness and their health in comparison to their wealth, it doesn't always match up. Like, there isn't this like linear trend that says you get wealthier, you get healthier, you get happier. But where that does come into play is you find friends, you are social and like find yourself in positive environments, you generally tend to be happier and healthier. So if we start to strip things away, like, my love and passion is like, how do we make people feel really, really comfortable and safe in a space to remind them of like what it truly means to be human and how incredible we are as beings, and who and how we can spend our time to truly reach our real potential in the world without sort of the extra clutter of some of the systems and infrastructure that we've built that distracts us extremely, like, distracts us so far away from like what really matters to a lot of us.
You definitely achieved that during Zuzalu. I remember going there for 2 weeks and I didn't have much of a prompt of what it would be. And being someone that goes to a lot of conferences, I just expected something similar to a conference, where I'd be sitting in a room and watching talks from like really smart people. I thought like the selection of the speakers was really top tier. But what I encountered there was truly fascinating. And I got uncomfortable, but in the most positive way, in sharing things that I never thought I would share with strangers. And so like I think there is like a layer of what you're doing that makes people feel that they are not alone when they don't even maybe think they are alone. So like what I see on the other spectrum of community, I don't know if you agree, would be solitude, which is a big problem nowadays. And not just in the segment of, you know, like longevity, Web3, AI, tech, like all these smart people, but in general, I think there is that is one of the biggest problems we're experiencing. The more technology we have, the less we have to go outside, get ready, like this ritual we have of like being in society. Do you think more people will be doing this in other verticals in life other than say like technology and the human development?
I think we can see just like, for one, technology is going to change our lives entirely in the next couple of years. Like, we think things are crazy now, but like wait until we have, you know, brain computer interfaces in our bodies. And I think like we'll in some interesting way, like we'll look back at like the era of computers and phones and see it similar to how we see like cigarettes today. Where it's like, whoa, wasn't that crazy that like we smoked indoors and everyone smoked and like that was just normal. It's gonna be the same. It's like, whoa, wasn't it crazy that we like hunched over a computer and like did that for hours in a day and then like got off that and sat on our phone and like stared at this like blue light screen the entire day, and like that's where everything happened. So I think we're like moving to this next generation of like being less tied to technology in the way that it is external to us, and it might become something that's more internal. But to your point of like, do we see this in other verticals, or like do we see sort of change happening in other verticals? What would some examples be that you could think of?
For example, people moving away from big cities and creating their own like small villages, putting their own rules, creating their own leaders.
I think we're already starting to see that. And like you're seeing so many people care about intentional communities now. And I think a lot of people are experimenting. Like Zuzalu was one of actually many experiments that are happening in the world. Like I don't think it's fair to say it's a first of its kind. Like kibbutzes have been happening forever. And they've been doing some like fascinating ways of getting people to live together. There's communities in a lot of developing countries that sort of are more like tribe-like in terms of how they spend time together living in villages and whatnot. But I think I truly believe and I hope that something like Edge City and something like Zuzalu can help inspire many more of these initiatives to happen around the world, saying like, look guys, we've got all the infrastructure to find aligned communities that can live together and like truly feel more productive, more happy, more connected than we are currently. And I think that's both going to happen in cities and in rural areas, but we'll start hopefully breaking down a lot more silos of what we've built today. And I think the architects of the future and the materials even that the architects use of the future will hopefully inspire a lot more kind of shared living space than what we currently have today.
From everything you've learned so far, and I already know that you're going to tell me something like you don't have all the answers, but from everything you've learned so far, if you had all the resources, everything you'd need, what is the ideal, like what are you aiming for with Edge City? Like what would be the ideal from what you know today? How would this look like?
Well, for one, I'm hoping to just be someone that inspires people to be inspired by themselves. Like, I don't think Edge City succeeds if it grows to be one big entity that has Edge City branded everywhere. I think it succeeds by inspiring others to build small communities that are values aligned in other areas of the world. And hopefully in like 5 years' time, we've got thousands of these networks of these villages and sort of what we would call like networked cities around the world that you could essentially flow between different edge villages that each have their own name or are like unique in their own way, but you've got this connected network that actually makes up a city. So like right now we think about a city as like a specific place. It's like we are in Denver now and there is no other Denver anywhere else. But what does it look like in this world of sort of globalization that we have to actually think about a global city? To have different villages that make up the entire city around the world that you could tap into, where you've got a passport that gets you into each one. And you're able to almost like live this slow mad lifestyle while being very connected to the culture, no matter where you go.
Every country has some rules of who can enter, who can do whatever in the country. There's always rules, and there is a reason why that came to be. Someone that studies history might have all the answers more than I would have right now. How do you go about curating who can be brought in on a pop-up village?
We're really starting that process now. Like, so much of it was focused on getting curators to curate it themselves. So I don't think it's as valuable to have 1 to 2 people doing the curation versus empowering a number of just like true experts in different fields to bring people together. Because something we haven't touched on that's super valuable about these spaces is like really bringing together multidisciplinary areas. Like, I deeply believe that progress will only happen when we're learning from one another. And in frontier spaces, a lot of these like different projects feel like they are totally kind of siloed and like in their own little world. Like the neurotech world is tiny. And you know, they're spending all their time heads down on neurotech, which is amazing. But like there's so much that they can learn from the sort of like Ethereum philosophy with open source and just like how that community is built and the people that, you know, that would be open to using it and testing. You've got sort of the longevity community, you've got space tech, you've got people working on new society building and new cities, you've got people working on the future of education and AI and all these different fields that like kind of operate in their own silos, but what they're all trying to help with is like achieving the next generation of how we live. So bringing them together in one space is such a beautiful concept. And on top of it, I don't know everyone in all those fields. Like, I'm just here to help create a space that others can plug into and like create. So getting curators from different fields that are deeply passionate about those fields to bring in people that they trust is step one. And what's amazing to see is like Zuzalu has become a network of so many different initiatives. So there's like Vitalia that just happened. There's Mu Chiang Mai. Now there's going to be a Mu Brazil. There's the Build a Monastery that's going to happen this year. There's a couple of different initiatives that are all trying to build their own pop-up villages that might have a slightly different bent and a slightly different flavor. And that's really cool to see because you're getting different people curating, you're getting different people attending them, enjoying them differently. Like some people resonate with one versus the other. And it means that there's many leaders that can help build the future of what society could look like.
And like by attending one of these, one is exposed not just at the speaker level, not just like when they are exposed to the talks, they can learn so much, but also just by having a random conversation at breakfast, because it is so, everyone is so different, and there's amazing beauty to it. Mostly if if at the core there's open-mindedness. I consider myself extremely open-minded, and I was exposed to so many like interesting ideas at Zuzalu. Here I didn't spend so much time. I see that you have like almost like, I don't want to call it a formula, but you have like some key things that you kept from Zuzalu. What are some of these things for people that never experienced?
What's fascinating is it's like all just kind of looking at like what social behaviors happen that make people feel really comfortable, right? Mm-hmm. Like it sucks walking into a conference venue. Like we've all been there, where you walk in and you don't know anyone in front of you. And there's just like chaos and people going around and some people having talks, but you're like, who do I speak to? Where do I go? What do I do? Like, how do I socialize? Like, will people accept me? Like, I have that all the time. And I'm someone that's pretty social. Like, I would call myself extremely extroverted. So there's this way of like, what makes people feel safe? It's like, well, one, easy, friendly connection where they're like, wow, I'm appreciated by someone. So there's small things of like making sure that people are saying hi to one another and passing that on to the next person. Like simple thing, like be welcoming, say hello and meet someone new that you haven't met before. The second piece is like proximity really matters. People remember their university days and they're like, that's so amazing. People were so fond of Zuzalu. They were so fond of ZooConnect. They're really happy about what's happening here with Edge City. And a big piece of that was like just having people in close proximity. Mm-hmm. So having that repetition of like, oh, I'm in the space where I'm seeing people again and again. Like you're growing familiar. You're feeling more safe. You're feeling more welcome. On top of it, I think there's like this thing that we don't recognize is like how much, if say you're in your brain, you've got a battery of like what it takes to socialize. In most environments, 80% of that battery is being used for figuring out the logistics to then get to 20% of socializing. So your ROI on socializing is like just a lot of effort, maybe not that much reward. Like you have to figure out sending a message to someone to be like, hey, where are you going to be? Can I meet you there? Mm-hmm. The second piece is like, okay, what time works for you? Let's schedule it. Then you've got to go into your calendar, schedule on your calendar. Then you've got to wake up that morning. You might really not feel like going to that place. You're like, now I've got to figure out getting an Uber there or a bike there or walk there. Like, which one am I going to do?
Or cancel.
Oh, cancel. And then you feel bad if you canceled. And then you feel bad if you're late. And then you arrive. And then there's 1,000 other things going on. And then you've been on your phone doing other things. And you're like, wow, now let me sit down and have the social interaction. Like, no wonder some people are just like, I'm just going to be a recluse. Like, this is just too much effort.
Yeah.
If you can have everyone in close proximity, that 80% battery that's going to logistics diminishes so much, and you put way more of it into socializing. Yeah. And the ROI is so much higher for something that feels so effortless. Mm-hmm. So people that think that they're actually like really bad at connecting, you might actually not be bad at connecting at all with other people. What you're bad at is figuring out the logistics to get to the person in the first place. Yeah. And that close proximity really matters. So always figuring out how to make that happen. So for us, instead of having food elsewhere, we were like, okay, make sure that, you know, we've got something on site on a daily basis with food. If we wanted to do cold plunges and saunas, it's like, okay, well, instead of doing it somewhere else, like, let's bring it to the venue so that people can do it right here. Instead of having the speakers in one section and being like, well, there's no chill zone, so people are going to have to go and, you know, hang out with friends at a place close by. We have something right there that people can dive into. So that was like the mini little village that we've created here in Denver. But at ZooConnect in Istanbul, we made everyone stay at hotels within 3 blocks of the venue. Mm-hmm. So it meant that everyone was bumping into one another while in the venue. And the venue had it all. It had the, you know, theater space, it had the co-working, it had the food, it had the ice plunges, it had everything in the venue, which was really special. And again, proximity matters. Low logistical overhead. And the same with Zuzalu, as we put everyone like close together. It was all in this tiny town. So that's a key component. The last one that I'll bring up that I think is really important, is shared meals. And having a space for shared meals that is actually smaller than the number of people you have as part of the like broader pop-up city. So for us, for example, we had a space that could host 70 people at the restaurant versus a full 200 people. And we did that both at Zuzalu and at ZooConnect, where it forced everyone to sit down at a table with someone. So there was never enough tables for everyone at all times. And it meant that, you know, not everyone's going to breakfast at the same time. So the flow was constant, that there was like enough seating for everyone, but you couldn't sit at your own table alone. So it forced that sort of connection and made it less vulnerable and less awkward to go up to someone and say, like, do you mind if I sit with you?
How what in you, like what happened to you that brought you to be so interested in community and be able to sort of bring this to this point? Because it's a skill, like not everyone would be able to. It's like, what did you experience in life prior that brought you here?
Such a great question. I also believe that everyone has the skill. It's just about being inspired to use it. Like, I'm not that much of a special snowflake, but I grew up in South Africa, and South Africa is just an amazing place for learning in so many different ways. Like, there's a lot that's wrong about the country, but there's a lot of learning as a result of that. So one, we have 11 official languages in South Africa and 11 official like cultures, and they are all very distinct. So there's this sense of like, okay, how do you get all these different groups to live together? And it's called the Rainbow Nation for a reason. And seeing just how much someone like Nelson Mandela turned the country around with bringing people together of different backgrounds was truly inspiring. On top of it, there's this like real sense of community in South Africa. Like, everyone has family friends. You go on vacation with family friends. You sort of like, I was constant, like my babysitters were not just like a random young person that came in like to our home. I would go to one of our family friends' homes when my parents had a night out. So it was this like communal friendship that existed, that as soon as I moved to the US, so I came to the US for college, I remember being so shocked my first Thanksgiving. I recognized, I was like, oh, can I go home with a friend for Thanksgiving? That'd be great. And I went home with this friend, and like learning about the culture of Thanksgiving was like, it was this insular family thing. Whereas like Christmas in South Africa for me was like, all the family friends would come and all your family and all of your family. And it was just this like big, like shared environment. So seeing sort of this like nuclear family sense, I was like, whoa, that's really interesting. And then on top of it, my college experience was like totally jarring. I went from being in a space where like everyone just kind of like was friends with one another and like really had one another's backs, to being in this college environment where it was a lot more individualistic. Like, the US as a whole is a lot more focused on the individual. And this might get a little somber for a bit, but I lost my roommate in college. And at that time, I was so focused on working hard and building like these different like nonprofits and doing my work, and like I was just so heads down versus like truly building community. And at that time, like, she exuded community in so many different ways. And a friend and I decided, it was like, how do we carry her legacy on? And we started building this. We built something called the Memorial Challenge that was focused on bringing people together through shared activity, and the idea of like shared suffering being such a valuable thing for people to do together, and like having community was such a powerful thing during that time. I sort of just made a commitment then of like, life is so short, and having other people to support you is so important. How do I invest more in this? And if I'm not going back to a home like South Africa that had that inherently ingrained, how do I build that culture for myself here in the US? So that kickstarted this journey of like building all of these different sort of environments where I was diving deep into community. So after college, I went and traveled to Europe, and I spent 6 months volunteering at different niche festivals. So like an ephemeral art festival, a wine and cheese festival, a Kundalini yoga festival, where you've got these niche cultures that are like so connected as a community, and just like learning as much as I could from that. And then during COVID, I'd been sort of building up these communities in the US of just like friends in different places and throwing different parties each month that were focused on like a different theme. I never wanted to just do a plain meal. It was like a cookie contest and a painting thing, and bringing just like different experiences to life. And then during COVID, a lot of friends were like, where is the commune happening? Like, what are we going to do? And a few of us pulled together, and we had 30 people traveling around together for 5 months, living in different mountain towns. And after that, I was like, that was such an amazing living experience. And like, we'd built that in a like roaming way, and then wanted to build that in Austin, which is when my husband and I settled down. We're like, how do we build all of our friends like living close to us? So we've got like 4 of our friends living on our street, a lot of people living close by, and that then snowballed into me saying like, I'm never going to be able to do this as like a real job. But all of a sudden, Zuzalu popped up, and I was like, well, here it is. And we might as well dive in. And I think as soon as you can find something that like you're deeply passionate about solving, both for yourself and others around you, and find that moment of a experience that like resonates so deeply that you have to bring it to the world in some way, like go after it. Even if it doesn't feel like there can be a job in it or like a role that comes out of it. Like if you just dive into what you love and are passionate about, something will unfold, is like something I've come out so clearly from this experience.
Yeah, you end up attracting everything you need, just from your energy and your will to make it happen. Truly fascinating story. You say you don't write, but how can people get in touch with you? Maybe learn more about all the experiences you are creating with Edge City, and maybe something else you might come up later on. Where can people find you?
Well, thankfully, we do have some people on our team that are incredible and just write so well. So follow us at Join Edge City on Twitter, as well as edgecity.live is where you'll find more about all the different pop-ups that we'll be building.
Janine, thank you so much.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Mia.